Hello viewers, today we will be cleaning and servicing a Lasko 16-inch oscillating fan with the translucent blue blades. So look at the informations. This is a type 16-1. This probably has a 4-digit model number to it. I don't know what it is. Tori, I'm sure you'll know what it is. Anyways, it's not in bad condition. It's pretty dusty. That should clean up just fine. The only thing I'm concerned about is the paint splatter on the blades. If it's a water-based paint, it may come off relatively easily. If it's an oil-based paint, not so much. But let's get into it and see what we can do. First thing we got to do is remove these grow clips. These are the kind that have the I gotta have dinner. Both sides of this has a clip to it. I think I use a bigger screwdriver, but I kind of start with this side that only has one piece to it. I pull that off, and then I go in here like this, and pry the rest of it off. These do have a tendency to break because they're only made of plastic, and over the years the sun exposure and heat and whatnot has gotten the better of them. But if you're careful enough, typically they can be removed without breaking. Actually, it may be a little bit easier to remove them on the other side first. The only problem is they get stuck on the guard. I guess that doesn't really matter. I can pull them off later. Okay, now what just happened then could have been very bad. Because if the grow comes off and then it either breaks this last tab or it breaks the blade, so you want to be careful of that. Fortunately, I caught it before either of those things happened. Okay, so here's the guard. It's quite dusty. Get this last clip off of there. No, that was not the last clip. There's one more down here. Okay, so we have 6 clips in total. We'll set those aside. And I'm going to remove the logo here. I'm going to clean it a little bit differently than I'm going to clean the guards. These 3 screws will release it. And this is another piece you want to be fairly careful with because the plastic is probably getting brittle now as it ages. Okay. Next we're going to remove the blade, and there's something in this blade. I'm not sure what or where, so we're going to find that out. Oh, I think it's going to be inside of here. And, oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. This was the sound. And that's where it broke off from. So we're going to have to fix that. This is loose. So we're definitely going to have to repair that. Now fortunately, the way it screws on, I think what we can do is we can just fill this entire thing up with hot glue. High or low temperature I think would be fine. And it would solve the problem. So we'll fix that later. Here's the blade itself. very big and heavy blade. I'm just realizing the hot glue guns are upstairs. I'll have to go get those. Take this piece off. And the rear guard will come off. Now we have two screws here that will release the front part of the motor housing. And this should come off. And this is really in desperate need of being cleaned, because once these vents block up with dust completely, the motor doesn't have much cooling to it, and this was getting very close to that point. You can see the motor here. You can see this is a really robust motor. Very well made. Very, very sturdy. You can't get fans like this anymore. On the back of the motor we should have another screw. That one's a little bit longer, so we want to keep note of where that one goes. And this isn't always the case, but on this particular model there's a screw on top of the oscillation control. So I'm going to unscrew that. I believe it's a reverse thread screw? No, maybe not. I'm having a hard time getting it to undo. It's just kind of spinning with the mechanism. Okay, this may turn out to be a problem. There we go. It is a reverse thread screw. So we're going to turn it clockwise to loosen it. Okay, so this should come off. And set those three pieces aside for cleaning. Now we have access to the interior of the motor, and this is kind of interesting. I've never seen this before. There is a some kind of a terminals there on the plastic that everything got soldered to. Very nice and clean way of doing it, but I can't say I've seen one like that before. One thing the Lasko really got right on these, well, they actually got a lot of things right with these fans, but one of them was this this wire. You can see there's nothing sharp in here for this to scrape up against. Even the plastic is fairly rounded at the bottom. So this is very safely done, and you can see there's no wear. It's creased where it sat for the last 40 years, but there's no wear on this wire whatsoever. So this is a very safe, well, as safe as oscillating mechanisms can be, design. I had the hot glue gun on a little while ago and it was still warm, so I've decided that we're going to fix this now rather than later. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to completely submerge this inner thing here with hot glue in an effort to keep that in place. Make sure I don't get any on the threads, because that would not go too well. Although it wouldn't really matter because I could always just undo it. And this is high temperature glue, a vintage hot glue gun. Okay, I think that will suffice. Okay, so now we just need to let that dry, and when that dries, that should be probably even more solid than it was when it came out of the factory. It's now several days later, and I spent about 2 or 3 hours trying to clean this blade. I got the paint off. I soaked it in hot water for about a half an hour, and the paint didn't come loose enough to scrape it off with a brush. So I had to scrape each individual droplet off, speck by speck. But it finally came clean. Then I discovered that there is some kind of a haze on this blade. You can see it pretty well from this angle. And it does scratch off, but it takes forever to get it off. And it looks awful. It's extremely visible. And I soaked it in hot water with soap for about 45 minutes. And I cleaned it with 4 or 5 different cleaners that are not harsh to plastic. And I can't get this to clean off. So I'm not sure what to do about this. It's very annoying, and it's taking up too much time, and I'm getting irritated by it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the fan back together at this point. I'm not going to get into the motor. I'm just going to put it back together, and when I've recovered from the annoyance of this, I will try it again and see what happens. There's one other thing I wanted to mention here. Aside from the haze on the blades, that same haze is on this center part here. It makes an appearance of kind of like a black dust. And the difficulty here, aside from the fact that no brushes fit in there very well, or not very many brushes anyways, it doesn't come off even with physically brushing it. It's really stuck on there. It almost has like the consistency of maybe a hairspray or something like that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out some other way to try to get that off of there.